Welcome to Between Two Clinicians, the podcast that gives you a backstage pass into the mind of two therapists. I'm Talia.
I'm Adam Luke. We've spent years helping others navigate the complexities of their minds and relationships.
In this podcast, we're flipping the script, and we're sharing our own unfiltered insights. No topic is off limits, and no issue too taboo. We're ready to tackle the tough stuff with honesty and empathy. Let's dive in.
Well, hello.
Well, hello there. I told you off air, going to open my protein shake so I don't pass out mid-episode. As funny as that would be, I'll spare the listeners.
Well, I'll be honest. I jumped us into this podcast because I knew that you were struggling, trying to get it in there.
No, it's good. We're good. I have it open now, so I'm not going to pass out. We're good.
There you go. Mm-hmm. All right. Mm-hmm. This podcast
Today's episode,
brought to you by Fueling Yourself.
Yes, we're not going to do a free promo for them, but if they ever wanted to reach out, I'll send them an email because it would be good marketing. I tell everybody about this shake, but today's episode is basically why people suck now. It's a episode I think we've alluded to in other episodes, but the topic is actually, let me say it exactly because we decided to pick this. The topic specifically is why do I keep picking the same people, patterns, projections, and repetition compulsion, which is essentially, I would say, the bread and butter of probably both of our therapy practices and coaching practices at this point, is the hardwired or software updated part of all of us that chooses familiarity over almost anything else, even if it's not the healthiest thing for us or it's not the most optimal option of partner choice. It's what we know either our role to be or what we assume the partner we're picking is, it's like all they're capable of or what they're going to end up being. So that's a bit of where the pattern recognition comes in, or the repetition compulsion, which is that urge to repeat what we have experienced in the past or recreate it as trying to get a sense of mastery over it or finally figure it out or beat the trauma or whatever it is that you're trying to get out of. But that is repetition compulsion in a nutshell. I know this. I'm going to repeat it in hopes that it'll come out differently this time, even though pretty much all the variables are the same and I would need to be different for it to be different. So we'll talk all about that and more today.
Like, just to piggyback on like how you kicked open the conversation, what I realized is when I sort of moved from working with just substance abuse and addiction and moved more into being intentional with my role in working with relationships, I realized that a lot of relationships are just like emotional gambling. Because like what you just said there, you just highlighted something called the gambler's fallacy, which is this idea that like, oh no, next time it's going to hit. Next time it's going to be different. And so we allow these certain things that sure, maybe the card game looks different. Maybe the game I'm betting on looks different. But there are so many sub themes that all share striking similarity to one another. And now as I work more in relationships, it's interesting to hear people articulate like, well, but this person seemed different from the beginning. And it's kind of funny because the internet likes to use the phrasing, the usual suspect. Yeah. Right. Yep. And so you can literally see pictures of these individuals and you're like, sure, that's a different person, but that's exactly the same person. Like, as the last picture, right? Like, no, they're going to be different this time. Cool. Tell me what is going to be different this time.
Yes. And if a person, I have this, I'm guilty of this as like a type, like if you lined up well, maybe not from the early stages, but like the last few people that I've dated, you'd be like, oh, they're all the same person, like same build, same this, same, they're like built like Maytag refrigerators. They probably all look the same from the back if you had them in the same uniform, which they also have the same career. So yes, there's definitely something to be said for what is going to be different and hearing the person's answer. What do you hope is going to be different, or what are you actually noticing is different? And I will say there might be actually some differences that, like, well, this
Mm-hmm.
person, they looked like this, and it was like 4 out of 5 was this, but they're more communicative, or they didn't have this, but
True.
this one has a job, or they, lived long distance, but whatever it might be. So there could be some differences in the beginning,
Oh
but
yeah.
the core, true core piece of repetition compulsion is, I'm trying to do differently in this relationship to meet some sort of need, to finally heal something in me. And the
Mm,
pattern that you're picking in that repetition compulsion, yes, they may be more communicative, they may have a different job, they may live closer, but there's still this, are they accessible to you,
yeah.
are they reliable, are they those true traits you're really looking for? And this is where we've talked about this, I think, briefly, that imago workup comes in
Mm-hmm.
handy. I want someone who, fill in the 3 traits of your primary caregivers, the positive ones, who is
Mm-hmm.
funny, who is intelligent, and who is family oriented. But I won't really fall in love unless, insert 3 negative traits. They are stressed out with work, they're not fully emotionally available, and whatever, pick another
Mm,
one, so that I can finally get, what did you long for as a child? That's what
of
you write in
course.
there. But you stop yourself from getting the love you want by, insert how you responded to your childhood frustrations. Did you slam doors? Did you storm off? Did you
Mm,
threaten to leave? We can start to see where this pattern comes true in us also. So I could actually pick somebody who is starkly different from the typical pattern, but if I'm not doing my work and changing how
mm,
I respond, or what I
of
choose to do with
course.
the information I'm being given, if I'm with a partner who is arguably a much better match, am I then self-sabotaging? So not only is it a
Mm,
pattern to pick people who maybe aren't the most functional, the pattern could be, if I break out of it and I do escape, I pick somebody who's functional, is then my
mm,
pattern to self-sabotage, because I'm like, wait, this is too good. What if it doesn't end well? I'll just make it not end well now. So I think both are true when we look at repetition
oh yeah.
compulsion. And we've done a few episodes on the, I never thought I could get this in life. I now that I have what I want, I'm sabotaging. So you can go back and listen to those for more on
Mm-hmm.
that tidbit. Today's focus really is on, you are dating the same person in different forms. If you're not figuring out at the core what you're after is trying to heal some kind of childhood wound, typically with your primary caregivers. And that's our
Mm.
template for our adult romantic relationships. As gross as that might be for some people, it's the truth. That is our template for love and how relationships should be.
Yeah, I think sometimes people get really wrapped up when we start talking about like those parents, right? Or what I love about imago therapy is like the opposite sex parent, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And a lot of times we're like, well, but I'm not attracted to my mom. It's not that you're attracted to your mom. There's
No,
these aspects
right.
of, at one point in time, that was the most significant, emotionally intimate relationship
Mm-hmm,
that you had. You
mm-hmm.
depended on that person
Right.
for a literal survival.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're going to go out and find what it should be the most important, significant relationship in your life outside of your family of origin, you naturally are going to apply similar things.
Yes.
So, like, I loved what you just did, because the way that I break it down with my clients is I say, okay, remove from your mind entirely your romantic partner you're thinking of. I
Right.
don't want your mind there.
Right.
I just want you to write down the 3 things that mom has done well for you, the 3 things mom has not done well for you, the
Mm-hmm.
3 things that you wish mom would have done for you. Just give me
Yeah.
those 9 things
Yeah.
on the list, right? And a lot of times we'll come back the next week, they'll have them very well articulated. You're like, okay, this all works out. And then I'll say, okay, so let me take those first 3 subsets. How, in what way has that shown up in your previous romantic relationships?
Mm-hmm.
And that's your like slow roll into building this awareness that it's like, no, 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 keep mom out of the back of your thought or dad out of the back of your thought, but let's look at
Yeah.
this right here. And
Right.
more than likely you're going to start to recognize, oh, wait a second, maybe I was always pining for words of affirmation from my parents, and now words for affirmation in my romantic relationships are
Mm-hmm.
almost like at a toxic level of need, right? It's
Yes.
the way that
Yes.
I see value in of myself, I see value in this relationship, is as long as someone will say words of affirmation to me. And if I'm
Mm-hmm.
not getting words of affirmation, I immediately move into an anxious state.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Similar to most likely how that person felt in childhood. And the
Mm,
the juxtaposition of in adulthood, we have a lot more agency and ownership truly than we actually did in childhood. However, we falsely believe we have just as little as we did in childhood. So if I'm
Mm,
not getting what I need from my dependency source as
yeah.
growing up would be my parents. If I don't get that, I still need to survive. So I kind of have to mute my wants and needs in order to fit in or still get somewhat of the love to survive. I falsely
Mm,
recreate that in my adult partnerships, not realizing, no, I can actually say, hey, that doesn't work for me. That I need more of this. I need words of affirmation. And if you're not going to be able to commit to doing that, we cannot be in this relationship anymore is the healthiest option available. However, on the other
mm,
side of being able to even say that, like it takes a lot of skill to say that, can I tolerate and still survive if I
yeah.
feel into it? Can I feel like I'll survive if they say no? You know what, you're right. I don't do words of affirmation well. I don't think I ever will, whether that's I don't want to give it to you and I'm withholding, or I'm not capable of it and I'm not going to give it to you. So go
Mm,
find somebody else and I'm not willing to learn it. Can I function on the other side of potentially being disappointed? A lot of people don't think to disrupt the repetition compulsion or use
mm,
the agency they have in adulthood to get those unmet wants and needs met because they're afraid of what's on the other side of it. Well, if I ask for it and they disappoint, like, wouldn't you want to know that sooner than later? If
I
I'm
think
asking
so.
somebody for something that they're never going to be able to give, what's
Mm,
the point of spending 2 to 3 years in a fantasy? One day, if they love me enough, they'll give it to me, when I could know in 4 dates or 3 dates, oh, they're not capable of it. And the balloon needs to burst on the fantasy. Being in a relationship with the real person in front of you, it's probably the least
mm,
sexy, but most painful, but also most necessary part of lasting connection. I
yeah.
need to see you for who you are. We've done numerous episodes on that. And this stems from, again, childhood. I couldn't see my parents for who they were, not me as Talia, like as
Yeah.
a child cannot see their parents for who they are because if
No.
there's any kind of harm or letdown, they would
Mm,
collapse psychically. I have to view them in a certain regard and protect against what the reality
yeah.
is. I take that skill right into adulthood with me. I give the benefit of the doubt too early. You
Mm-hmm.
have to trust, in my view, and what I used to teach as a professor, you have to trust somebody to give them the benefit of the doubt. Trust
Mm,
precedes benefit of the doubt. If you're just giving benefit of the doubt to people you don't know, that's projectively hoping they're going to be this perfect person. Doubt them, right?
yeah.
Like this, and this is a subset of schema therapy, I would say. Like some people are like, trust everyone until proven otherwise. I'm the opposite. I'm like, trust no one until proven otherwise. Take the middle ground from this in which you will. There is a need to try to advocate and get those needs met and see
Mm,
if the partner is even willing to do it. Once you have that information, then you get to make a decision about whether this relationship is going to move forward or not. You don't want to make a decision off of fantasy or
mm,
hope. You want to make it off of actual knowledge, which requires facing your fear. This person might not be everything you think they are. But the good news is they might be even more than you thought they were.
I think that it's funny because when we talk about templates, or the way that I phrase it in my work is I talk about silhouettes. Like if you
Mm,
don't have a template or a silhouette, everything fits. Like
true.
that's the challenge there.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because I'm raising a toddler and we're all in the blocks and shapes and whatnot, but like
It's a really
at
good point.
at
Yeah.
some point you have to know, like, am I looking for a square, a triangle, or an
Yeah.
octagon?
Pattern. Yep.
Same thing when it
Yeah.
comes to me picking out a relationship.
Yeah.
And I probably see this most often with my clients that are on like the rebound, right? They pop
Hmm.
out of something, there's this fresh sense of self, and then it's like, well, yeah, you'll be able to find any sort of suitor that will essentially like abuse themselves with you,
Hmm.
right? So like, but are you actually in the thought process of like, what do you want? Like if you want a fun time, go have a fun time.
Hmm.
100%. But I think a lot
Hmm.
of times we throw ourselves into this process of like, oh, I'm looking for a fun time, when we're still like, well, no, does this cover it up enough? Is this a big enough emotional band-aid for the
Yeah.
trauma I just experienced, the grief I'm still processing, the
Hmm.
life change that's just rolling out on me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like we need to be asking those questions. If you don't ask those questions, then that is when history is just doomed to repeat itself. Especially like I've been navigating with some of my clients who are older, they're getting out of marriages that have been 20 plus
Yep.
years, right?
Yep.
it's not surprising that sometimes you pop out of that, you have 20 years of context in a different direction,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then you fall back to like what you used to like back when you were an 18-year-old or a
The
20 year
last
old.
time you were single, yeah.
Exactly. And it's
Yeah.
like, okay, well, but that was a whole level of danger you were willing to throw yourself
True.
into
True.
20
Yeah.
some odd years ago. The sexual playground is a much scarier place since then. But
Oh, yeah.
also just like, is that actually you? Like, I think it's actually probably more of that instant gratification
Mm-hmm.
mindset, that anxious individual mindset. I think it comes from a youthful position because we're hurt. We go
Yeah.
into our inner child, but we don't have
Yeah.
to allow the inner child to sort of drive the ship.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think the what you just said, like that, the to extrapolate the lack of self knowledge. Who am I? What do I like? What do I dislike? That may have led to part of the
Well,
divorce
for sure.
also needs to be tended to even more so to prevent another repetition
Mm,
of potentially a second divorce. The reason the divorce rate
well said.
is the length of marriage if you get remarried and actually have a second divorce is much less time, and that's often because the people who like do the statistics, they do the research, they're like it's because they know what they already don't want and they're not willing
Mm,
to stay in something as long as the first one, they're and they have the kind of the sting of morality of divorce is gone, so they're like fuck it, what's one more, essentially. Advocating you don't actually have to get married again, you can just have a partner again, and the breakup would probably still be the same length whether the breakup is called a divorce or not aside. If you are not tending to the disowned or unattended to parts of self that led you to not recognize who you were or not recognize the partnership you were in and eventually be like, I don't want this anymore, this doesn't
yeah.
fit, that will come true again if you're not doing that work before you find the next partner. And this again is where the pattern recognition comes in. What role did you want to play that you didn't, or what
Hmm.
role did you actually end up in your last relationship or previous relationships that you now are like, oh, I was always the whatever, the caretaker, I was
True.
always the caregiver, I was always the mom friend, I was
Mm,
what the or the Peter Pan complex, if you will. I was the fuck boy vibes, or I can't tell you how many
mm.
profiles I've seen lately that I screenshot just
For
for
purely
laughs.
business purposes.
Research purposes, of course, I can write off my subscription. No, I don't have one anymore. It just was pointless. It was not a good investment. And literally it was so abysmal. I was like, I'm not paying for this. It was like a free week that I got.
We're
They're like,
over
you're
here
one of the
just
top
selling hope
matches,
for
right?
everyone
Yeah.
else.
I'm not the person to talk to in this season. I will just say that. And I admire the audacity of some of the guys I've seen on here with their honesty of like, dating me is pretty chill until you tell me I can't go golf. I golf 5 times a week after work. I this. To be honest, I love the honesty. It's better to find that out from the beginning. So again, I can admire that. And I also know my pattern. I
Mm.
have PTSD from golf. I will never date somebody who golfs. Maybe mini golf, maybe, but as a
You
hobby,
could still have
sorry.
like a flashback
Yeah.
event.
I'm like,
Like,
yeah, I can't do it. I just can't. And maybe there will be
like,
a day
ladies
where
and
I
gentlemen,
can.
she can't
Yeah.
even watch Happy Gilmore.
No. That's probably the only thing I can do golf related because there's other parts of the plot and I've already seen it before the PTSD occurred. But the reason I bring it up is I know there is a person out there who probably does golf and it wouldn't recreate the same trauma, but
True.
I'm so at this point unwilling to take that risk because of all the
Mm,
other associations with that
yeah.
hobby. Just like there's certain associations people have with careers, with
True.
places people are from, with family structure types, right? If I've only ever dated people who have been a child of divorce, that's going to be different than I've only ever dated people whose parents were
Mm,
married or parents were married but should have been divorced. Starting to notice your
yeah.
own pattern can be incredibly helpful in understanding there's still parts of me I need to work on. If the clincher
Mm,
was, let's say I meet somebody in person and their one downside is that they golf, I would be willing, I'm going to say that on the record, I would be willing to work through that if all the other traits I
of
needed were
course.
there. So I'm not going to be so blindly following, well, oh, they golf, I'm never going to date them. But if that's what you're leading with on your profile, or every photo you have is you at a golf course, I'm going to swipe left. That is just not something I'm willing to
Yeah.
put up with anymore. Had I not known that though, had that not be
Mm,
something that like is my current, I'm not going to follow that pattern again. Well, he's this, but he has a nice career and maybe it'll change. There's no delusion left in me. Like, I'm dating very real and in reality. And yeah, that's not as fun, but the likelihood that the next partnership I'm in is actually longer lasting and based on reality, not a fantasy
Mm,
projective version or a healed archetype version, that real or that likelihood is higher, and I'm willing to take that risk versus people who don't do any of the healing work and they're like, it was all the other person's problem. If you're dating and you're dating somebody
mm,
who's divorced or broken up with and they can't say any accountability or ownership of what part they played in it, they need some more work and some more time to work on
agreed.
themselves before they'd be ready to be in another relationship. And there again is a need to examine, where does this pattern stem from in me? Why did I go for
Mm,
that type of person? What was I hoping for? What did I want to rescue them from? What did I want to be rescued from? Do I have role familiarity when it's not an equitable relationship? Did I get modeled by society to be the mom in the relationship? Being able to have that in your awareness
yeah.
lets you date differently and lets you not go into, I just can't stop myself from
Mm,
picking the same people over and over. If you do no awareness work, you will. Like, I know somebody who
correct.
shall not be named. Every person they date, they cheated on. They pick the same hair color, the
Mm,
same career type, the same archetype. They get cared for
wow.
instead of doing the caring for. Like, you line all of them up, and it's like, you literally haven't learned anything. Wow. Like, they are just searching for their mom and all the women they're dating. As an outsider, we can see that more realistically or easily for other people. But when you're in the thick of it, if you're just like looking at a tree like this, you're not going to know that it's a tree because it's
Mm,
smack dab right here. You have to get some space to get some perspective. And that's what I'm hoping, in part, some of these topics in today's episode can do for
yeah.
the listeners, is give you some perspective. You may have a lot more agency and a lot more responsibility to take in your choices than you're currently allowing yourself to take. Hey there, listeners. Are you tired of settling for less than you deserve in your relationships? Do you ever feel like you're not being seen, heard, or valued the way that you want? Or maybe you've been wondering why you keep attracting the same kinds of people into your life, or why certain patterns seem to repeat themselves in your relationships. The answer might be deeper than you think, and you can find it in my new course. Rewire Your Relationships is a transformative course designed to help you stop settling for less than you deserve and start embodying your most confident, assertive, and authentic self in your relationships. You'll explore how your early experiences and parental influences have shaped your views on love, dating, and self worth. This isn't just about tips and tricks for dating, it's about understanding the core beliefs that drive your relationships that you attract. You'll learn how to break free from those old patterns and start creating the kind of connections that truly reflect who you are. Imagine stepping into a relationship with clarity and confidence, knowing you're attracting people who value and respect you for who you really are, your deeply authentic self. The Rewire Your Relationship course gives you the tools to rewrite your relationship story, one where you're no longer settling, but thriving. Visit taliabombola.com/rewire your relationships or check the link in the show notes for more.
Well, the natural pivot point from
Yeah,
here is also to move into like that role of attachment styles, right?
totally.
Like,
Totally.
because we bring that into relationships always,
Yep.
especially
Yep.
if, sometimes for like the women I'm working with, they come out of relationships where they've always been and I hate using always, but at least in this relationship, the consistency was anxious attachment, right?
Yep.
Like I was
Yeah.
always
Yep.
fighting to
Yep.
have a presence in this person's life.
Yeah.
And so, yes, you can remove the person, but then when we actually take away the context of time, anxious
Mm-hmm.
attachment is probably one of the more passionate
Mm-hmm.
experiences in a
Yep.
budding relationship.
Totally.
And it first starts off with like the text in the morning, good morning, how are you? The text at 30 minutes later, what coffee did you have? Like
Mm-hmm.
there's and when you're starting to see yourself doing hundreds of texts in this, like, is it actually that you're that interested in that person, or you're subconsciously telling yourself this is how quickly people can forget about me?
Or remember me, either one.
Yeah.
Yeah, how top of mind or not am I? And that seeking and
Hmm.
that in itself is a pattern. The like dopamine hit that you get, that first feeling of a crush, that chemistry is sometimes just like, oh, this is
Hmm.
familiar to me. Like you were saying earlier with the gambler's fallacy, intermittent positive reinforcement is the strongest reinforcement schedule for behavioral patterns
Mm,
for a reason. If I send a text and know I'm getting a response versus I don't know when I am or if I am, if I'm anxiously attached, I'd prefer the latter to the former. If I have the
correct.
former, meaning I know if I send a text, I'll get a response, it's kind of like a cat playing with a mouse and it's dead and it's like only fun for so long. And then it's like,
Mm-hmm.
on to the next one, thrill of the chase. For that person listening, what is it about you that you still need to work on that you don't feel maybe worthy or deserving of
Mm,
consistent, safe love? Do you view it as boring? Do you view it as too easy? Are you
mm.
paranoid or skeptical about it because you're like, this is going too well? There are certain
Oh yeah.
archetypal thoughts with certain attachment styles, like you're talking about, similar with avoidant. Oh, they're so nice and this and that. I think I'll just stop talking to them. And I'm like, this is everything that you said you've wanted, and now you're avoiding it. And they're being chill,
Yep.
saying, hey, if you have some time to go on a date, I'd love to, not shoving
Yep.
it down your throat. I'm good. I've worked with both. I've worked with anxious people who need to
Mm-hmm.
tamp it down, and I've worked with avoidant people who need to ratchet it up a little bit if they actually
Yeah.
want to stay in a relationship. I've worked with secure people as well, but they don't typically report to therapy, I would say. Like the
Well,
earned secure attachment ones
secure
will,
people
but
are
yeah.
secure.
Yes.
Like that's,
Yes.
I mean, we're actually trying to shepherd you into the secure attachment.
Yes,
Like,
which is a sense of I'm okay in partnership, I'm okay out of
mm,
partnership. I would prefer if I have someone to be near them when it works, but I'm not it's not going to be an undoing if they're ignoring me. I'm not even probably going
correct.
to think of it as ignoring me. I'm going to categorize it as they're busy with something else. If
Mm,
someone's busy with something else, how do you view it? That says a lot about your
yeah.
attachment style. Are you grateful because you're like, oh, thank God they don't have to talk to me? Avoidant. Or are you like, oh my God, what is could be more important than me? Probably more anxious. And there are certain seasons in which we have higher dependency needs on our partners, right? Pregnancy, postpartum,
Mm-hmm.
early childhood years are much different, hopefully, and unique than if you're just
Mm,
going on a first or second date.
yeah.
So I don't want people who are further along in partnership to hear
Mm-hmm.
this and be like, oh my God, that's not anxious attachment. If there's a stark shift and you could depend on somebody and then they've withdrawn that ability to depend on them, that can create an anxious feeling and create a
Correct.
more insecure attachment. But that could be relationship dependent. It's not necessarily you dependent. But
Mm,
if you're looking at yourself going, no matter who I've dated, this is how I feel, that's what we're talking about today is this is your pattern and your repetition compulsion. Why do you keep picking people who trigger your anxiety? Why do you not pick the person who is stable and consistent? What's getting in the way is maybe your attachment style and not
yeah.
having a secured or an earned secure attachment style.
And then it's just a natural, like, pop into them
Mhm.
projections, right? Because
Totally.
we're sitting here and then we start
Yep.
projecting,
Mhm.
well, if they would just have this, then they would be the perfect person.
Oh, totally. And this is evolutionary too. We compare men to the perfect woman. The perfect woman would never. The
Mm,
perfect woman would. We think of you as just hairy women, which you're not. And that can be really disheartening when we realize who the person is, or really exciting when we realize, oh my gosh, neither of us have to be perfect for us to be in a
correct.
relationship. What a relief. But projection is so fraught in the beginning of relationships. My husband would never, my husband would, my wife would never.
Mm,
That can be a helpful guidepost if you're being treated like shit. Like, yeah, if the litmus test is also, we've talked about this, the way to pierce through a projection or ensure that you're not acting out of or only into a projection is to check yourself and go, if this behavior were to never change, would I be okay with it? Like what's cute in
mm,
the beginning and what we justify. Oh, they were late, but it was because of this. Oh, they were this, but it was again, if you give the benefit of the doubt too early, you're going to find yourself making excuses for somebody who's just going to take advantage of you.
mm,
So not a good idea to do that, and you often project the perfect partner.
yeah,
Oh, I'll give him another chance. No. 3 strike rule. That's it. More than 2 is a pattern. So if you're with somebody
absolutely.
and you're projecting and they do it more than 2 times, are you okay with them doing
Mm,
that for the rest of the relationship? If yes, keep dating them. If no, probably not the person to date because your projective fantasy of them is not going to come true. And you keep staying because of the gambler's fallacy. Maybe one day they'll turn into the fantasy that I have of them.
yeah, I think the other side as well is this realization of like, you can't be mad at your potential suitor not choosing you or standing up for you if you won't do it for yourself.
Yep.
So like
Yep.
it's interesting
True.
how many times we'll talk about like shoring up boundaries, and immediately my clients will take it as, so I'm making ultimatums. You're not making ultimatums.
They're different.
You're
Yeah.
just saying like, hey, for us to have a relationship,
Yeah.
for this to continue to mature,
Hmm.
these things fill my cup. These
Right.
things allow me to feel safe. These
Right.
things draw me into having a relationship with you. And they're like, yeah, but what
Hmm.
if they don't do it? Well, I guess that's when it turns into the ultimatum. If they're not meeting those things, then you said these things were significant. If you never hold them to that, then they were never significant.
Right.
So,
Right.
like, which one is it? Like, how
Yes.
many times do we send our significant others on like wild goose chases because we won't actually speak to what we need? It's just like,
Hmm.
oh, well, will they try to pull the sword out of the rock? Stop having the
Hmm.
fantasies of like, well, I'm going to send you on these little quests when the quests actually aren't what you want.
No, and they're indicative that there's more work and recognition to be done of self-worth and self-esteem. The To your point, the
Mm,
fantasy question of like, well, what if they don't? Then wouldn't you want to know sooner than later? But then what does that say about me? What if it says nothing about you? Okay, let's go
exactly.
both ways. What if it says everything about you? Then you need to pick different people. And if it says nothing about you, which is the more secure
Mm-hmm.
functioning way to think of it, that's them on their own journey. And I've been
Correct.
very honest with what I'm looking for at this season of my life with the people that I've gotten past like certain, not tests like I'm
Mm-hmm.
messing with them, but like there's certain markers I look for of like certain personality traits. If they do have kids, how involved are they in their kids' life? Like there's certain
Mm,
things I look for, and a few people have gotten to higher echelon, if you will. But then still, for some of them, I'm like, I have some concerns about this. But I've been open with what I'm looking for, and they're like, wow, how refreshing. Like, I'm like, what a fucking concept to just lead with. I'm looking to date this many times a month, this, that. Like, knowing what you're looking for also can help you to weed out people who don't know what they're looking for. And if you
mm,
are open to whatever, then be honest that you're open to whatever, but don't lie and say, I'm never looking for a serious relationship if you are, or I'm trying to get married right now if all you want to do is hook up. Being honest with yourself allows you to be honest with other people, and
yep.
I ideally opens the pathway for them to be
Mm,
honest in return. But we can't expect just because I was honest with you means you'll be honest with me. There needs to be still some, like you're saying, boundary could turn into an ultimatum of, look, I said this was important from the beginning, you said you would, you're not. What
mm,
gives? Is it actually going to be, or were you just saying that because you thought it's what I wanted to hear? And being able to say what I just said to the person and stomach if they go, yeah, I was just actually trying to sleep with you, so I told you what you wanted to hear, or no, it actually is important, thank you for reminding me, I slipped up, and then they do it in earnest. Great. No one's going to be perfect ever, and no one's going to do entirely in the exact ways you want what you're requesting from the start. We do need time to learn one another, and in that time that you're learning one another, ideally make sure that it's not just falling into old patterns, acting out of
mm.
projections and just pure fantasies, because then each of you are in a relationship like this, but I'm over here on my path and you're over here on your path, and we're just kind of doing life together, assuming, and we've talked about this before
Mm-hmm.
too, oh, I want kids, I want kids. Sally on the right is thinking, I want to have 6 adopted children, 2 biological children, and 1 through IVF. And Tom on the left is, I want 2 biological kids and that's it. If all I've ever said is, I want kids and I want kids, we think we're in agreement, but we didn't do the operational defining. And that's going to
Mm-mm.
be a disappointment in the future of, okay, let's start with kids. And I pull out the adoption agencies and you're like, what? Well,
So
you said you wanted kids.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, we didn't clearly define.
surprise,
Yeah,
right?
we didn't say the specifics of it, right? What are your deal breakers are very important
Mm,
to prevent repetition compulsion, prevent the projective identification and projections as much as possible. If you lead with, here's what I'm about, here's what I'm not about, here's, and this is kind of the point in the episode where we tell you how to get out of this, like, here's what I am about, here's what I'm not about, here's what I'm looking for, take it or leave it in a
mm-hmm.
loving, kind way. You weed through a lot more people. Yeah, dating isn't as fun because you're not having the fantasy chemistry, will they, won't they? But that only lasts even for a short period of time in any relationship anyway. So I know it's kind of disheartening probably to hear this, but
Mm,
it is necessary to know
absolutely.
yourself before you open up your life for someone else to get to know you. That's what I would say.
And I think that's like, this is probably gonna be one of those episodes where we're gonna have to do a two-parter because
Mhm.
there's like so much depth to it.
Mhm.
Where it's like
Mhm.
this is scratching the surface. So if you're starting to ask yourself questions based off of what we've said,
Yeah.
like my encouragement to you is like congratulations. This is like the beginning of developing awareness
So true.
because
So true.
we don't ask ourselves these questions, right? We
Yeah.
you know, if I'm a dude, I'm thinking blondes, brunettes, all these other things that are they're
Mhm.
superficial
Mhm.
to the individual that I'm trying to
Yeah.
spend the rest of my life with or have a
Right.
committed relationship with.
Right.
But I think that that's also one of those things. If we could actually peel back the layer of like sort of like our social enigma, it's the fact that there is so many focuses on everything that isn't important, right?
Mhm.
Like I don't think that it's Calvin Klein and Victoria's Secret. It's about our intellects meeting, our hearts
Mhm.
meeting.
Mhm.
I love how you always have phrased it like let's make our hearts meet before our parts meet,
Mhm.
right? So
Yeah, my
like
students love that one too.
that
Yeah.
that's one of those where it's like we don't think that way, right? And
Right.
especially I would actually want to encourage you as well. If you're out there and you say like I can't stand the hookup culture, I want you to take a real long hard look and say like am I participating in it? Do I like to sit around a table with family and friends and say I can't believe this happens, and yet once I leave the turkey dinner at the table, I'm swiping left or right
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
finding something that can distract me, right? I think the
Right.
other aspect is a lot of times dating turns into this socially acceptable form of disassociation
Mhm.
where I stop paying attention to the
Yeah.
worries, the
Yeah.
concerns, the challenges in my own life, and I find someone else who basically wants to body double in strategic laziness. Like, okay,
Mhm.
well, neither one of us will focus on the things that are important in our lives, and we'll just
Right.
throw it in this relationship until the wheels fall off.
Yeah, it becomes an outlet for all of the uncomfortable emotions that we're trying to avoid. And if I have
Mm-hmm.
somebody, like we've done that episode before on if our relationship was mainly built off of drinking or drugs or going to concerts,
Mm,
like all this external substance use aside, but especially if it's included, like all these external factors, I don't know the real you. That's the core that I think we can weave into if we do the part two. How do you know your real self? How do you feel comfortable with another person
mm,
knowing your real self? Do they know their real self? And a lot of this is contingent upon, are they aware of their patterns? Are they
mm,
aware? Because projection is a psychological defense we're not often aware of unless somebody points it out to us. Same thing with projective identification. I've worked with a lot of couples where they do have this parent child um,
mm.
dynamic or archetype to them, and they each get something out of it.
Yeah.
She would typically get something. I've worked with men too where they're like more of the dad, but for this example, she gets something out of being more of the maternal nurturing
Oh yeah.
person. He gets something out of being nurtured, but then as soon as he tries to
Mm.
do for himself and be the adult, she's like, that's not your role, what are you doing? And
I
some
actually don't
relationships,
enjoy
right? Yeah,
your
I don't
development.
actually don't do that. And same thing with this. I want to caretake. Well, she wants to go get a job and be a business owner or whatever. No, 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 no. Only the way I decide. And this is the power struggle
Oof.
that often keeps people in these projective, i.e., not in reality relationships. If it only works when both of you are in fantasy, it's not going to work when
Mm-mm.
reality hits. Reality can hit when one of you goes to therapy, when you get a dog, when you have a baby, when one of you loses your job, if you lose a parent, right? Like real life shit that comes in and blows the smoke away from the projection, and you see the man behind the curtain. You're like, oh shit, do I think this person is going to be there for me through the
Yeah.
intensities of life? That's what makes or breaks not only projections, it's what makes or breaks a relationship. Is this the person I want standing by my side for
Mm-hmm.
not only the joys but the hardships? And I've been the maid of honor 3 times now, I think. Yeah, 3 times. And my wedding speech for each of them has been, you're not going to be married to the same person who's standing next to you if you do it right. You're going to fall in love with hundreds of different versions of yourself, and you have to keep re-meeting
Mm-hmm.
them. And if you only ever get the negative sides of the vows, right? The poverty, the sickness,
Mm.
whatever, and you still feel like you won the lottery with your spouse, that's who you should marry. And everybody's in tears. They're like, oh my God. And I'm like, I know, I'm a therapist. That's great. But it's true. Like, that's the true part of the speech.
Cry, you sons
Yeah.
of bitches.
Good. Yeah, the next one will cost you, right? Yeah. Yes. Yes, that is how it feels. It does totally feel like that. And it's true, right? If you feel like you have that ride or die person, that's where these traits of loyalty, commitment, communication, those ideally transcend the looks, the money, the everything else. How are you going to be when everything's not going your way is a really clear indicator of what kind of partner you're going to be in reality, not just in fantasy. Yeah.
Mic drop.
So you're welcome for that therapy session. We should do a part 2, and we'll include like psychological definitions of what we talked about so people can have it as a reference, and then we can do a part 2 for more. And if you're listening to this and you're like, I want you to go more in depth on whatever we touched on today, let us know and we'll include it for the next time. And then if you want more of like how to heal it, I feel like we do a great job of presenting people of like, here's what you have to heal from. And maybe we're, kind of opening the door for them to actually come in and pay us for the healing afterwards. But I feel like with this one, this just dawned on me. Maybe with this one, we could give them like a few tips,
We could give some breadcrumbs out.
Yeah, right? we'll throw you a bone for this one.
Yeah, you want some croutons? Here's some croutons, right?
But I've listened. This is really the mic drop. I've listened to podcasts where they do give you like all of the steps, and people are like, "No, I still need help." And that's usually when people message it, and they're like, "No, I get it.
I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid at all that we are not going to work ourselves out of a job."
No, especially with AI on the horizon, which will be one of our future episodes. What is the future of therapy? So,
yeah. Well, it has been wonderful to sit down with you.
You as well. Thank you very much for your insight. And we will hear everyone in a couple of weeks.
Perfect. See you guys.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Between Two Clinicians. We would so appreciate if this episode resonated with you, for you to share it with somebody, and also find your favorite podcast platform and like, rate, and subscribe to the podcast. We would love to attract more listeners just like you and have this message be spread to whoever needs it. So thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.